Welcome to the Dropout Multi-Millionaire Podcast, where we talk about tactical business strategy, building high-performance sales teams, and growing your business. If you're ready to break free from the status quo and join the ranks of the Mavericks, the Rebels, and the Renegades who refuse to conform and instead build multi-million-dollar businesses, then buckle up, because here we go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of the Dropout Multi-Millionaire Podcast. I am your host, Brian Will. As always, this podcast is based on my best-selling books, The Dropout Multi-Millionaire, and my new book, which is called No, The Psychology of Sales and Negotiation. Today is the fourth show in this series around the new book, and today we are going to talk about your sales team, or maybe about you as a salesperson. In the last episode, we talked about using scripts to overcome objections before your client has them. Today, I want to talk about why we have scripts and why I am so adamant about salespeople using and training them. After training maybe 1,000 salespeople, I have found that salespeople fall into three primary categories. There are those I call closers. And then we have regular salespeople. And finally, we have what I call retail geese. And yes, I did say retail geese. So let me explain what all these mean. It's always amazing to me that we can take, in a sales team, we can take the exact same product, we can take the exact same leads, the exact same pricing, and some people will close at 2 to 3 times the close rate of some of the others. And you got to ask yourself, how is that possible? Isn't sales just about telling someone how a product works? Or isn't sales just about is it just about explaining features? And the answer is obviously no. Sales is a skill set. Some have it and some don't. It can be natural, but it can also be learned. Closers, as I like to say, are superstars. They have the magic. They get people to trust them and like them. They come across as professionals. They make people believe that they are looking out for their best interest and not their own. Closers make a connection, and that is the magic of being a closer. These people can just make things happen. And they represent, in a large sales team, maybe 20% of your sales force. Then we have the regular salespeople. These folks are going to get enough sales to make the company money, enough to satisfy their personal goals, pay their personal bills, but they're never really going to do more than that. And that's okay. They will make up 60 to 70% of a sales force. This is where you as a company will live most of the time. And that's also the norm. You don't want to fight this. It's never going to change. This is the way it works. This is your bread and butter. That's the way sales is. Okay. And finally, we have what I call our retail geese. And our retail geese, let me tell you a story. So years ago, in one of the companies we sold into venture capital, I had a sales partner who had a farm out in Marietta, Georgia. And he had this giant deck on the back of his house. It was beautiful. And it overlooked a lake with some apple trees. And he had these geese that lived on the farm and basically hung out at the lake. We were sitting out there one day and we're drinking an iced tea and we're watching these geese. And these geese are just standing there under the apple trees looking up. And I looked over at Sam. I said, "What are those geese doing?" And suddenly an apple fell out of one of the trees and all the geese scrambled. They went a mad scramble to run over and see if they could get that apple. And we started laughing. So one goose got the apple and then the others just stood there looking up again, apparently waiting for another apple to fall. And Sam looked at me and he goes, that represents about 20% of our sales force. And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, geese can fly, right? They could literally fly up there and knock those apples off, but instead they choose to just stand there and wait for the apple to fall. Like our salespeople stand around and wait for a sale to happen. And so we nicknamed our bottom performers our retail geese. These are folks that you call at the phone company and you're going to switch something on your plan. They're technically in sales, but they're not selling you anything. These are people you go to the mall and you want to buy a shirt. You walk into Dillard's and they're waiting for you to come up and give them a shirt to buy. They're not selling you anything. They're technically in sales, but they're doing nothing. They're just standing around waiting for an apple to fall. Okay? That is the bottom tier. These people are probably losing money for your company. They're the hardest to deal with. And quite honestly, they probably need to go. Any marketing dollars that you are allocating to these people are not just wasted, but they are costing you real revenue and they're costing you OpEx expense on overhead to manage them. Your marketing dollars are far better spent if you let those people go, reallocated those dollars and those leads to your better performers. You will make more revenue, more profit with less overhead. Your company will do significantly better. I can tell you, every organization I've gone into consult for, we have dropped the bottom 10 to 20% of the sales force because they were actually losing money. That's called a bottom-up P&L. We'll get to that in another episode, but managing a sales force for high performance is definitely, there are definitely secrets to doing that. Okay, so how does this relate back to these scripts I was talking about? We know that sales is a psychological negotiation between two people. One person is a customer, the other is the salesperson. We also know that the key to being a closer, your high performance salespeople, is to understand the subtle nuances of how people think and how they react. If you have a sales force with some history, you should by now know a lot about your potential customers. You should be able to build a script and a sales process around that so that you can, by understanding how they're going to think and react, we can build a script to overcome those objections and overcome those reactions prior to the consumer or the client even having them. We also know that 60 to 70% of our sales force is average. If we know that, then our job as managers and owners of companies are to help them by crafting a script and process to help them better use those techniques that our closers are using that we know work. We don't want to leave it up to them to figure it out. We want them to do exactly what we tell them and exactly how we tell them to do it. Your script actually gives your sales manager or your owner the ability to control a conversation before that conversation even happens. That script is a force multiplier. You should have a script that is good enough that we know that if a salesperson reads it with even a mid-level of personality and understanding, they will succeed at a level good enough to make a profit for the company. So here's my question for you, Mr. or Ms. Salesperson. Are you a closer? Are you tops on your team? Are you average? Are you average and you want to be a closer? Or are you just a retail geese and maybe you should look for another line of work? It's a tough question. Thing is, you can learn, you can get better, but that's up to you. So that's it for today. This, again, is an example of what we teach in our mastermind and in my one-on-one coaching. If you want to learn more, you can get copies of my books, The Dropout Multi-Millionaire and No, The Psychology of Sales and Negotiation. You can also find me at www.brianwillmedia.com. Everything is there, books, blogs, etc. And finally, if you really want to learn some in-depth tactical business strategies on how to create high-performance sales teams, come to the website, drop me a note. I'll send you some information on the Force Multiplier Mastermind we have and my one-on-one coaching programs. My coaching is tactical in nature, no theory, no fluff. This is where we break down your business and show you how to make it and you better. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you would like to get more information on either of my books, joining the Force Multiplier Mastermind, or my one-on-one coaching programs, you can find me at www.brianwillmedia.com.